Give me shelter. The PWD rates in BC are woefully inadequate. And today's show, we're going to be talking about that with my guest up next. So stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host. Thanks for tuning in today. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share the content that you're viewing today. It really helps to boost up the channel. If you'd like to contribute to the dollar signs down in the comments section, within 24 hours, it'll reappear and it'll be there again for you. It's magic. That's how technology works here. Today's show, I have Breanna Bandet joining me, and we're going to be talking about Give Me Shelter. And that's the PWD shelter rates in British Columbia. They're woefully inadequate. You couldn't rent way back in the 1980s for that price, and you definitely cannot rent now market rates for rent. So joining me is Breanna. Hi, Breanna. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, very good. Yeah, the last time I saw you was at our PWD rally at the BC Legislature. That was great. Thanks for coming on and talking about what you're going through.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you know what, Brent? Just before we get going, if you wouldn't mind, you started the show saying, that we have the dollar bill in chat that people can click on. And I wanted to make a habit now. We actually have uh, our, remember we had a member that or somebody that signed up for a membership a couple months ago. We have a brand new membership again,
Oh,
and I'm just going to do a shout out. It's Shannon Hollingworth. She signed up for a monthly double double, and remember
oh,
we have the different membership levels.
yes.
We have the Timbit level. Again, these are monthly memberships. So the Timbit level is $2.99 membership, and then we have the apple fritter is $49.99. And like I said, Shannon Hollingworth signed up for the double double, and the double double is $12.99 monthly membership. So she signed up for one of those. And the last level of membership we have is the Buble, and of course that's reserved for Michael Buble when he becomes a member. That's reserved for him, and that's for $29.99. So
Oh,
we have a membership level just for Michael Bublé alone. But I'm really impressed. We have to do a shout out to it's Shannon Hollingworth, and she signed up for the double double. So we're really appreciative of that.
thank you very much.
So thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
thank you for that information, Neil.
yeah.
And then joining me today, everyone, is Neil Matheson, my editor producer for PWD Allies, and always great work that Neil does here to keep things going and keeps me on my toes too, and keeps the show active. And of course, having a wonderful guest joining me today, and to Brianna to talk about where we left off when we were discussing at the rally, how the woefully, I mean, beyond woefully inadequate shelter rates, how it's affecting your life, like right now, and what do you want to see? I guess that'd be the first part of it. And what do you want to see the government do? I mean, going forward.
So basically, I feel very, very lucky to have gotten my housing. I am on PWD and I have subsidized housing. So with that, I feel that I can get by all right. Like it is all right, but I know most people don't have subsidized housing.
Hmm.
And at the current rate for PWD, it's just not enough for people to afford market rent. So many end up homeless, and then there aren't even adequate shelters for people, so they're left extremely unsafe. And yeah, many people have lost their lives that way. So that's why
Yeah.
I feel so strongly about this issue.
Well, let's talk about the hard numbers again, Brent, because we
Yeah.
just mentioned it on the last podcast, and we've mentioned it recently. And I think when Jeff Leggett was on, we talked about the percentage of people on PWD that are getting the RGI subsidized units or subsidized housing. It's only 26%. only 26% are getting subsidized RGI units like Brianna is. So that means 74% are not. That's a big percentage. So this is what the whole show is going to be about today, about the 74% of people on, that are on PWD assistance that are basically getting left behind because you know you're stuck paying really high market rents.
Yeah, Brianna, I echo your comments on that, and it is something that I've mentioned before to the current minister that's in charge of MSDPR in British Columbia, of extending the RGI over to PWD recipients that are on PWD status in British Columbia, who live in market housing right now. They could easily extend that over to people that are struggling paying high market rents, so that it kind of equalizes the whole system out, because it is a systemic issue. Rather than people being on a waiting list to try to get into subsidized housing, and as we know, we have a housing crisis. There's not enough housing that's getting built, and my motto is idea is to keep people housed rather than unhoused, and having it extend to market housing where they currently reside, or maybe if they want to move to another place, they're going to have that RGI until maybe other housing does get built, and that way people have more options. So I echo what you're saying on that, and because the rates are just completely out of touch with today's buying power. I mean, you just can't afford market rent. You have to choose between that or food or bills or meds or you name clothing. I mean, toiletries. Yeah, the list goes on.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you know the amount of, I mean, we can talk about RGI units, but the provincial government talks about shelter spaces too. Do you know if we're going to talk the difference between RGI units versus shelter spaces? Do you know the breakdown of that, Brianna?
So from what I understand, and I've trying to understand exactly how it's all working, but I've been writing some emails to different levels of government, and Laurel Collins, who was the NDP federal, she responded saying that there is money, they have money that is going towards building more subsidized rental units, affordable housing for people.
Hmm.
But that will take years and years. So
Yeah.
then they also have what they call emergency shelters. But with that system, I think most of them, from what I understand, people are expected to come every day at a certain time and line up to try and get a shelter mat. But then often they aren't enough for everybody. So there are some vulnerable people, a lot, who are people with disabilities who are left
Hmm.
outside all night long,
Yeah.
totally unsafe. And I have friends who are living that right now, and just the things they've told me, the danger of their lives is just unacceptable.
It's
And
crazy.
they've been assaulted, they've been robbed, like regularly this
Yeah.
happens, and it's just not all right. So basically what I've been kind of advocating for, and what my opinion is that I see there's a need for, is more kind of like a live at style shelter that's kind of
Hmm.
more like a hostel, where everybody has a bed that they can keep, and so they can go there whenever they need to rest, and a locker where they can lock up their belongings, because they don't even have lockers at the current shelters.
Right.
um, yeah, just basically more dignity for everyone who is experiencing hardships in their lives, PWD or welfare. Just they need more support all around
Hmm.
government.
Yeah, exactly. And and that's why the call to raise rates and bring it up to no less than poverty level financial support, and give people a dignified life that they deserve. I mean, nobody should have to be homeless anywhere in our country. I mean, especially in a province like British Columbia, where they're supposed to be leading the economy, economically. I mean, they say, well, they're leading the country here. Well, then it's like, show me the money, right? I mean, that's that phrase, "show me the money." But they getting back to what you mentioned, Breanna, like having kind of like a hostile, a place to go to where
Not hostile.
not
Hostile.
hostile is what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people are becoming hostile because they
Yeah.
have a hostel
Yeah.
to go to, is what
Yeah,
I meant to say. I was playing with words there. The alphabet soup, right? But the fact is, though, people have all their belongings. They have to store them somewhere, and a lot of these environments that BC Housing is setting up, it's not allowing people to bring in a lot of their belongings. They have nowhere to put them. They're setting up these makeshift shelters where, you're lucky if you can actually get into them. And if you do, then you have all these conditions that you've got to meet. It's people are left behind.
Well,
I think
one of the things that Brianna just touched on, though, because when you were talking, Brianna, you were saying, that you have people with disabilities, people in wheelchairs that are being left out in the cold. Now, I want to stress the point that when you have a physical disability, or it doesn't have to be physical, it can be any disability, but especially if you have a physical disability, let's just say that you're already kind of vulnerable, like that's a vulnerability right there. When you have a physical disability, you have a very significant vulnerability, and I have a physical disability, so I can verify that. But I wanted to briefly touch it on again, like my first wife, she had kind of a very profound disability where she was in a motorized chair her whole life with arthrogryposis, and what that is your joints are fused, like so that you can't even lift your arm up to your face. So she had to have like carriage like 24/7 to actually lift her arm up to her face to comb her hair and brush her teeth and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people like that can't even lift their arm up to their face to feed themselves or to brush their hair, and that's significant. So when you're leaving people like that out in the cold, exposed, and saying, "Sorry, we have no shelter for you,"
right.
that is really
That's
significant.
disgusting. It's disgusting.
Yeah, real.
Yeah, it's really horrible. I met one guy, and I think this happens often too, is he had been at the hospital, at the Jubilee Hospital, and he was homeless, but when I met him, he could barely move, and he had a walker beside him. And they said that, yeah, they just released him from the hospital back out to being homeless with nowhere safe to go, nowhere to stay. And I think that happens often, that there's just not enough places for people to go, even when they have disabilities that are, make living life independently almost impossible, and they're just neglected.
A really important point that Peter Cunnington just said. He's in chat right now. He says, Peter Cunnington says he knows you, by the way,
Oh yeah.
Peter, and he's making a couple good points here. He says that if you do go to a temporary shelter space, you don't get your shelter portion because
Yeah.
because it's just temporary, right? So you actually don't get the provincial government will not give you your shelter portion, right? Because it's like, well, that's not permanent. That's not a permanent address. So you can say goodbye to your shelter portion then, right? So yeah, you just stay in that vicious cycle of like, well, just stay without a shelter space. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because like if you take away the shelter, then all of a sudden the recipient base gets permanent housing, and so now they go to a permanent landlord manager of a company or whatever, and so they find a place and say, well, here's the address. Now they'll say, well, we're gonna give you your shelter back. So now the questions start getting asked, oh, was that all the government gives you? Rather than just having it, because now they actually start picking away at the shelter portion, saying it's too low. So it becomes a more of a question. So it's like opens up Pandora's box, shall we say, problems. I mean, the rates are already way too low in total, like 1483.50 in British Columbia, including your shelter portion of $500 that was increased in 2021. I mean, sorry, 2023 up to 500 from 375. So taking away that shelter portion, yeah, it just creates more questions. Because just to give you a little heads up, FYI, Breanna, I was talking to my corporate manager, and I said, well, so if and I live in market housing, so I said, okay, so here's the scenario: if I didn't have permanent housing and I was living, living rough or living in a temporary shelter, she was okay, and I came to you and said, well, the government's going to give me my $500 back if you can actually give me housing, would you question that? Well, she said, I would look at it as, are you going to be able to pay your rent in total? Like if you have to use your support portion and that, yes, I would look at it and say, well, why would the government do that in the first place? I go, exactly. And then, so that's coming from a corporate manager of saying, like, why is the government not raising rates and why are they playing PWD against PWD? And I think a lot of people look at that too in general, just to kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit about the shelter rates. There was a kind of a, what was it called? It was on Czech News. They had one where they go back into their time vault and they look back at what the shelter rates were back in 1981. And it was you couldn't rent anywhere for $500 maximum. And that's what the whole PWD check was $500.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
325 was the shelter, and it stayed that way all the way until 2007 when they raised up to 375, and it stayed that way all the way until 2023 where it finally got raised up to $500. But the part that really bothers me the most on that situation was the government had an opportunity in British Columbia of given that 125 increase, they could have given to the people, the recipients in RGI housing, because their cost of living has gone up. They could have easily given that 125 and evened it out, even though it's rent geared to income. It would have actually been fair rather than pinning disabled against disabled. I think that was a bad look that they did there. A missed opportunity for sure. They could have fixed that.
Yeah.
What's your take on your view on that? Is like the dividing disabled against disabled? I mean, RGI market housing.
I think the ones who get the subsidized housing are like, it maybe has saved a lot of people's lives to have the subsidized housing, because if a person is truly disabled and feeling just unable to be working, then it does leave them in a position where it's just not affordable to have housing at all. So yeah, I'm not sure what the options are for people who are left in that situation. Like if they have family that can support them or friends, then that's great. But a lot of people don't have that. So it's those people who are suffering the most. So sometimes I think it happens that it's the ones who are having like the hardest times in life that are left to have even harder times. And there needs to be more ways to support those people. So yeah, the government, it really needs to step up with more increasing the rates for people. And with shelters, I think by doing both those things, like everybody who is experiencing yeah, disabilities in their life or just extreme hardship can be lifted up to uh, having a chance to live a life that is um, what that everybody has the right to, like a life of safety and a life of happiness. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that we talk a lot on the podcast about is just lifting people up to like no less than poverty level of financial support. It's giving people a dignified life. I mean, people, if you give people the resources, you give people the income, they're gonna better their life in so many ways. They're gonna give themselves secured housing. They're going to put the money back into the community. They can buy clothing. They can buy fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. They can better themselves in so many ways. So many ways. I mean, in helping small businesses, like local businesses within their communities. Yeah, I mean, and they can feel part of being like they can feel welcome of being saying I'm a valued citizen of my province, because right now I think that a lot of PWD are that they're just hanging on, barely hanging on to hope.
Yeah.
Hope and dignity, because like if they don't have hope, they just say, well, the government's given up on me, like the system has given up on me, what's the point, right? And that's another thing we'll talk about in just a moment.
There's a saying that says hope is not a plan, right? Hope is
Yeah,
not a plan. But I wanted to get to the point, it's just like I don't know, the government seems to think sometimes you just kind of wonder. It's just like, uh, I think of that Seinfeld episode, the soup Nazi. No soup for you. And
right.
this idea that it's okay. I don't know if the government thinks it's okay that
Or no coffee, or no
we're
coffee.
only supplying 26% of PWD with subsidized housing. It's okay. No soup for you.
But
Is it really? Is that okay that you're only supplying 26% subsidized housing? I mean, it's not good enough. And you've stressed it over and over again to Sheila Malcolmson. It's like, could you please extend the RGI units, or the Safers subsidies program? You've talked about the subsidy for seniors,
yeah,
right?
there's the seniors, the Savers program that
Yeah,
senior and British Columbia get. It's it's equivalent of RGI,
yeah.
and the seniors can live in their own home that they've lived in for many years. Maybe they want to move to another house, but if they don't, they can still have that same program offered to them in their same residence that they live in now. There's also a program that's part under the BC housing umbrella, that's actually for low income individuals, like single mothers, single fathers. They actually qualify for that subsidy also, but people with disabilities do not qualify,
Well,
simply because they get the shelter
yeah.
portion in market housing. If they didn't get that shelter portion in market housing, they qualify for RGI, but it needs to get extended over. So it's so easy peasy to do that.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of the formulas on how hard it would be to do that, and it's not. It's a batch file.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to stop you there, Brent, because you
Yeah,
just said something. You just said something that single mothers and single fathers qualify for rental subsidy, right?
yep,
You just said that, and it is
yep,
true. I know it's true
yep.
that single mothers and single fathers qualify for rent subsidy. But guess what? I was a single father for over 5 years after my first wife died.
Right.
I was a single father for over 5 years after my first wife died. And guess what? I did not qualify for any subsidy. I qualified for a PWD clawback. I
Oh,
qualified for a PWD clawback of over $500. Or
oh,
I think it was like almost $500. A PWD clawback. So instead of a rent subsidy, I got a clawback. And
they require.
I was a single dad for over 5 years.
Yeah, they reward you with a clawback.
And that's what I mean about government policies where it's no soup for you, no soup for you.
Yeah.
Right? You have all these weird BS like you get this and you don't get this. You get this, you don't get this.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of BS. It's BS, Brent.
Yeah, and Breanna, when we were at the rally on May 29th, I mean the minister for MSDPR, I mean, wonderful speech. The shadow minister, wonderful speech. The member of the Green Party, of the BC Green Party, I mean, great speeches. One thing that did stand out to me that the minister of MSDPR said is that the voices in the legislature, they're not all being heard. You know why they're not being heard is because they don't care. The other members, they don't care. Maybe there might be some that do care, but if it doesn't affect their lives, they're okay with status quo on the policies that are embedded in the legislation. We're there to now tell them it's not okay. They need to now listen to the citizens, and we're there to teach them that they can change these things. And I want people to understand that we are the ones that elect the officials to represent our needs in either whatever province, if it's provincial or federal. And they're supposed to be representing our needs of policy changes, things that aren't working, things we want to see better. And again, I hear crickets. I mean, Breanna, maybe you could elaborate on this, but from my perspective, I hear crickets. I hear lovely sound bites. Like the words "I hear you." We know that the system needs to be changed. It's mean spirited. There's more work to do.
We've raised the rate. We've raised the rates 5 times, Brent. 5 times, Brent.
No, it's actually less than 5. But I'll go with that rhetoric because it's a script, right? It's just a script.
Yeah. Can Sheila Malcolmson please stop saying that? Like seriously, I don't want to throw darts at her. I don't.
Oh no.
But can she please stop saying that? We've raised the rates 5 times. She needs to stop saying that. She does. She keeps saying that, and it's wrong. Like, I mean, even like you could like I could say, if I was your, I don't know if this is a stupid analogy or not, Brent, but let's say I was your parent, and I gave you a dollar allowance. And then you just could say, well, could you please give me another dollar? And like, okay. And so you could keep coming back to me 5 times and say, give me another dollar. And then I could say, well, I raised your allowance 5 times, Brent. It's $1 now, it's $5. Like, wow, it's just like, let's be real about the amount that the dollar has been raised. It's still.
Especially like I'm glad you mentioned that because again I'll be sure to Breanna here on this is that sure you can say 5 times over 8 years. I mean,
yeah,
and
everything's relative, right?
Yeah,
everything's relative.
It's peanuts though. Like it doesn't. I mean, if you give a rate increase of $50 and say your market rent is higher and the cost of living, I mean the cost of food inflation has skyrocketed. Inflation has moderated to a certain level nationally, but I don't really go with the Stats Canada numbers because they're all misconstrued. It doesn't always pick up all the formula on the cost of living stuff. But the food inflation has gone up, rent has gone up. I mean, everything in general has gone up, right? So when a government says, "Well, here's $50," well, that's not even going to give you cover your cost of living anymore. But we raised the rates 5 times, So Breanna, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I really want to believe that the people in government all care. I think they need to care more about vulnerable people, like make that a priority, caring about vulnerable people, because I think that's what governments are for. And I think they just don't realize how hard it is for the people who are most affected. Like, just even after that rally, there were those cards to ask the government to raise the rates for PWD.
Yeah.
So I went around with Peter and we were talking to some people who are homeless and struggling and just asking them for their take. And what I've heard from some people is that, well, first of all, that some of the people are being kind of asked to prove that they have disabilities to get disability funding in the first place. And because of that, it puts them in a situation where they have no access to any funding at all. So it's pretty much when a person is at their lowest, just not giving them any access at all to a way to have safety. So I think the government needs to wake up to situations like that, because so many people in Canada have lost their lives because there just isn't enough support. And I think they're turning a blind eye to that and to people's suffering in general who are lower income and disabilities and on welfare. So I don't know. Like, I don't know how things in government work exactly, but it seems like it might be kind of like a telephone game almost, where everybody has to talk to everybody else, but then
A
somehow
broken telephone game. Yeah.
don't happen, don't get done. And it's the people, it like, it doesn't really matter for the people in government because they have their salaries, they're well paid, so they don't, their lives aren't really affected. But others, yeah, they're just left in situations that have no solution. So it just, I'm not sure how to get through to governments fast enough and have them take the right steps fast enough to actually save people's lives. That's what I'm most concerned about.
Yeah,
Well,
they want to study and have consultations and reviews and figure out what went wrong and have other committees to now look at that too, and then come back and then they say, oh, okay, well, compiled all that data, and then they come forward and they say, what did you come down with? Well, this is what we crunched our numbers down with. Out of 10 out of 100, we came down to 10 solutions. And now they're going to study those 10 solutions and want consultations from the PWD community, and then they'll say, well, this is what we've heard, right? A small portion of the population is what they heard, what they want to see change. Well, they didn't talk to the whole broad range of the population.
Yeah.
And that comes down to like when they did the bus pass clawback, right? They talked to 6 people in the whole province,
Yeah.
rural area,
Like literally 6, literally 6.
literally to change the whole system.
Yeah.
And so again, I think that it's a missed opportunity on the government to really do the right thing. Breanna, I'm glad that you mentioned that. There's so many things that need to be changed. I think it's just a communication breakdown, right, from the government. It's like they live in a bubble. Like a lot of them are privileged, and I don't like to use the word bubble into major content, but they live in a privileged environment, right? And I think a lot of them will admit that because that's how the system is designed. However, they may live in a privileged environment, but they need to listen to their constituents. They need to listen to the voices of real lived experience situations, what people are going through, dire situations, living on the streets where, and it really touches home when you mentioned about a person has to prove that they're disabled. I mean, they don't have a family doctor. We have a doctor shortage across the province and across the country, and that creates major barriers to accessing the services and the needs that the person needs. Having to prove themselves, I mean, that's just terrible.
Well, you mentioned doctors, Brent, and I just wanted to jump off of what Breanna said a bit earlier. And Breanna, you're free to comment on what I'm about to say as well. But you mentioned doctors, like I said, Brent, and we know with doctors there's something called the Hippocratic Oath. The Hippocratic Oath is do no harm, right? And we also know that when you have ministers in government, whether it be federal or provincial, when you have ministers in government, every year when they get the job as minister, they have these mandate letters. They have these mandate letters, right?
Yep.
And one of the mandate letters for if you're a minister of social development and poverty reduction, one of the mandate letters for that is do no harm, do no harm. Same idea, like Hippocratic oath, do no harm. So you're gonna tell me that this playing disabled against disabled, where like you get the rest of the subsidy and you don't, like this no soup for you added, this no soup for you policies, like how is that uh you know uh being doing the proper mandated thing of not doing harm to people, right? And if you want to jump on that, Brianna, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just like I'll say so. Going around, I've met some people who um they applied uh for disability support, PWD, and somebody in government decided that they don't deserve it. So being left in a situation like that, I think can lead to a spiral down in that person's life. And so for that reason, I say that if a person is at a point where they feel they are disabled enough to ask for disability support from the government, that there should be no person on the other end that just is deciding like, oh, they don't think your disability is enough. Because so for my own situation, I didn't used to feel I have a disability. I yeah, I actually like felt confident about my abilities, and then I experienced extreme trauma. And after that, that is when I just felt unable. And it's hard to explain the ways, like, it's hard to explain the ways my brain changed. But being left in a situation where I just felt like I don't know what I'm going to do because I didn't feel able enough or safe enough to be working full time, especially. Um, and so I felt extremely vulnerable. And I did apply once for PWD, and the person came back at me with I needed to do all these different things, and I just felt like I couldn't do those things either. And I did luckily have my parents who could support me, but as I mentioned before, a lot of people don't. And then there are people who I've met who are homeless who are so vulnerable that when Peter and I were going around asking them if they would even want to ask the government for more support for raising the rates for PWD and welfare, they were so confused that they just didn't even know what we were trying to get them to do. So I think it's especially for those people who just are so vulnerable that they just don't even know that like asking the government for support and having the government give that to them is the right thing. So then, yeah, they're just left struggling and struggling and struggling. And I have a friend recently who lost her life because she just didn't feel there was a way out. That's how I see it, that she just felt hopelessness. And it's a fact that sometimes money is necessary to lift people out of that hopelessness and have their needs met. Like, I think the government has these ideas that people's needs can be met without any money at all or very little money, but that's just not reality.
Yeah.
And kind of the more disabling a person's disability is, the more support they
Yeah.
need. So I think the government, they need to realize that people are suffering, and it is the responsibility of the government to help people most in need. So I'm not sure the fastest way to do that, but
Yeah. Good
Well,
mic drop. Good mic drop. I wanted to break in. Sorry, Brent. I wanted
yeah.
to break in because there's a really powerful comment from Inga Klaus in chat, and Inga's always, she's one of the regular listeners of our podcast, watchers of the podcast, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Inga because she just did a really powerful comment. She says, "I am in a one bedroom and pay $1,000 a month. My husband passed away 6 weeks ago. Uh, my husband passed away 6 weeks ago. My heart goes out to you, Inga. And anyway, she continues on. She says, I cannot seem to find a cheaper place anywhere. And she's put that in bold capitals. She can't find a cheaper place anywhere. But they were, and this is all in capitals, but they were sure fast taking my money away.
Yeah.
So here we have Inga who just lost her husband 6 weeks ago. She can't find a place cheaper that than 1,000. But they clawed back money from her because her husband just passed away. And this is the same situation that I've been in for 12 years, where they were just so fast to claw back money from me. And like you said, early on the podcast, like, we give subsidies to single mothers and single dads. Well, no, you don't. I mean, yeah, you might give subsidies like a little fraction, but you sure were quick to penalize me with a clawback.
Well, first off, I want to send my condolences to you.
Yeah.
For your loss, and also, I'm so sorry what your friend had gone through, and also to our commenter Inga, my condolences to you.
Yeah.
For loss.
Condolences, Inga. Yeah.
And anyone who's watching the podcast, if you've lost a loved one recently due to government neglect, my condolences go out to you and your family and your loved ones around you.
Inga,
the government must do better.
Inga just replied back. Sorry, I'm going to break in again. Inga just replied back. I am afraid I'm going to be living in my car. I'm afraid I'm going to be living in my car. And again, so this is somebody that just lost their husband 6 weeks ago, and the government is gleefully clawing back money from a recent widow. And again, this is like echoes of my situation. Like my situation has been going on for like 12 years. But I mean, so she just lost her husband 6 weeks ago, and the government can't wait. The government can't wait to claw back money from her. Yeah, and so now she's afraid she's going to be living in her car.
Yeah, they seem to be kind of itching to find ways.
And my heart goes out to you. Sorry, yeah, I feel really, really bad. But it's disgusting.
Yeah,
it's disgusting that the government doesn't care.
And I've said it many times too, Neil, on the podcast. My condolences also still to you, Neil. I mean, for what you're going through. I mean, and this is a learning lesson to the government. Like, you need to now wake up and look at reality. Like these are lived experience stories. These are like lived experience what people are going through right now. Mm-hmm. And all we hear is, well, there's more to do. Yeah, we hear you mean-spirited legislation. Well, fix it. It's not hard. I mean, we can fix it right now. All of us could fix it for you.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Brent, I mean, and Breanna can say the same thing. We all can say the same thing. The fact of the matter is their mean-spirited legislation does not affect them.
Exactly.
It does not affect David Eby. It does not affect Sheila Malcolmson.
They all got a $60,000 pay rate.
They all got their $60,000 pay raise. Yeah. So it's not affecting them. It's not affecting them.
Government's not broke. They say they're broke. They've got money.
They got lots of money to hand out to themselves.
I never buy into that rhetoric. Oh, the government's broke. I was telling one of my neighbors who just turned 92, by the way. So I wished him a happy birthday today. And I told him, he goes, how is the podcast going? And I said, the government's broke. He says, oh, Brett, you're such a laughing, you should be a comedian. I go, I'm serious. The government said they're broke. He goes, a government is never broke. Okay. Yeah. If they're broke, then they should not be in government.
Yeah.
Oh, David Eby.
He should put it to a confidence vote then.
Yeah. And if the government
put it to a confidence vote, like, am I really, really broke? Yes or no? Yes or no? Let's put it to a confidence vote.
This guy used to be an MLA under Dave Barrett way back when.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a good sign. Well, anyway, that's my comment on that. But Breanna, there's so many systemic problems within our provincial government, and like they're waiting on the feds to come out with this Oh, completely watered down CDB garbage. Like it's from what I'm hearing is that people might only get up to $20. I mean, and
Yeah.
they come through all these hoops. Like yeah,
Oh, and we should say, I should break in again. Sorry, Brent, I keep
yeah.
breaking in, but
So
we should say that the CDB, the applications for the CDB it's going to start online on June 20th.
June 20th.
June
Wow.
20th is when the online applications start. So everybody go to the federal the government of Canada website. If you go to the government Canada website, so what is it? Gov. I don't even know what it is. Gov.ca, something like that.
Probably gc.ca, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So
Probably
just
government
just
of
just
Canada.
look up government of Canada website, and then on the website, well, you can actually just type in the Canada Disability Benefit, and then put Government of Canada, and then they'll probably get you right to the CDB application button there. But apparently that button goes live. That
Yeah.
button goes live on June 20th.
I know one of our viewers who loves the podcast, by the way, Sarah. I won't say your last name. I mean, maybe she could probably when she sees the podcast, she could just copy the website underneath the actual podcast. And that would be great if you could do that, Sarah.
Mhm.
Sarah's a great advocate across Canada. She's a powerhouse. She just says how it is. And I notice a lot of the media right now, Breanna, they're copying and pasting federal government language, and they're not putting out the whole fact of why PWD are having barriers of getting this CDB. They're leaving out a lot of the factual information. They're just putting out what the federal government is saying that this is the amount up to $200. It's not true. Like it said, there's I think there's opportunity for the federal government to make this right and fix the benefits right now before getting it out the door to people.
Yeah.
Like it started out at 2,700 originally, down to 22, down to like thousands, and then it down to 200, and now it's watered down. I want to see people be able to access this benefit after 5 years of waiting, because that's why the provinces have been waiting on the federal government. They said, well, we're not raising the rates because we're waiting on the federal government to deliver a historic benefit that's going to help people with their shelter, their cost of living, all their daily needs that they need. They can buy their meds, everything. It's going to be historic, and it's going to be modeled after the GIS, the Guaranteed Income Supplement for seniors.
Yeah.
And it's going to be based on individuals, not household income either. And so whoever decided to go against the regulations in committee stage, I mean, shame on you, right? Shame on you for not listening to the MPs, like Mike Morris for the former federal Green Party of Kitchener Center. He advocated, and a whole bunch of them advocated very strongly. But Mike, he got these measures put in place, Breanna, that was going to protect the benefit for people. And so he was so excited. He came on the podcast to tell us about that. Yeah. And the federal government said, "Nah, thanks anyway, but we're not going to listen to you or any of the disability advocates across Canada or any of the organizations across Canada. We're going to do it our way."
Our live chat is very active today, Brent. I just wanted to do shout outs because so this is why I'm breaking in a lot, because the chat is really good today.
Wonderful.
So I just wanted
everyone
to do a shout out to Inga. She says the CDB is friggin' BS, and then Peter Cunnington says the CDB is crap, but it's what we got. And then we got a couple of really good comments from Laurel Miles. I just wanted to do a shout out to Laurel Miles. Her first comment is, disabled citizens in my city had a 42% increase in municipal taxes. So again, she says disabled citizens in my city had a 42% increase in municipal taxes. And remember, Brent, that the governments love to say that people with disabilities don't pay taxes.
Oh, yes.
But here we have Laura Miles saying disabled citizens in my city had a 2% increase in municipal taxes. And she goes on and says the increase was put in place by the regional district to pay for a utility upgrade. And then her second comment was disabled homeowners are deferring debt, and as fixed income people, it's a terrible burden. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's always that, Laurel, that's Laura Miles. Yes, I recognize who that is.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm going to echo that comment, and then I'm going to ask Breanna your view on this.
Oh yeah, she's in Trail, BC, by the way. Trail, BC.
Trail, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that area of the province. It's so beautiful up there. But yeah, here's the myth. It's just a myth that the provincial and federal government always puts out there of saying, well, disabled in our country, they don't pay taxes. So why should we take care of our most vulnerable? Well, the fact is that reality check is, yes, we all pay taxes in one way or another. We pay tax when we pay a utility bill. We pay tax when we pay a cell phone bill. We pay tax when we pay our TV, our service provider. We pay tax when we go and buy any laundry detergent, dish detergent, toilet paper, paper towel, you name it. We pay tax. We pay tax on your hydro bill.
Yeah.
Right. I
We
mean,
pay tax on everything.
You know what I mean? Everything, and so
they're gonna start taxing oxygen pretty soon, like the air we breathe. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so the myth is, oh well, they all live at home with mom and dad. No, we don't. No, we don't. My mom and dad. Well, my mom and dad are 6 feet under. So no, that's just not happening, right? But anyway, Breanna, what's your take about that the myth is that PWD don't pay taxes in Canada?
Yeah, like
I know it's so doesn't make any sense.
well, I think when it comes down to it, PWD people don't pay a lot of taxes because we're not high earners. So
yeah, so that
and,
part is true, I guess.
Like, got a lot of the time, anyway, every case. And governments are kind of more self-serving. Like they will say that they deserve like over 100,000 a year, while they let most vulnerable people try and survive on like 12 to 20,000 a year. And it's just, if they're going to have such a big income disparity, and then that's acceptable to them, then like I think it's the people who are earning more money who they can support the people who are not able to do that right now. So yeah, I think sometimes governments are just, they see themselves as up high and other people as down low, and they don't understand that some people just not sure. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example of one scenario that I went through, and this is not throwing the government under the bus or giving inside info, too much of it. But I was under an executive at one point in time, and for provincial, under a city municipality. So the status quo was, well, we've always done it this way. I was an events chair. I was elected as events chair, and my job was to have a committee and organize getting a committee. I didn't know anything how that worked. Well, what is that? Well, you have to get people underneath you. Well, how do I do that? All these questions I was just kind of throwing in there, elected. But anyway, I had to figure it out pretty fast. Long story short was, we've always done things this way. I looked at ways of doing cost-cutting measures, but in a good way, of streamlining it. So, we would, anyone who's familiar with going to a function where sometimes you're going to have some catering stuff out, you're going to have tables out, you're going to have coffee, tea, maybe some juice, some cookies, maybe some little snacks, some sandwiches, this and that, right? Okay. So anyway, they had always done it in a certain way. So we would go to a meeting and we would have where coffee and some cookies would be out. Well, I said, well, why don't we go and actually get a canister and brew our own coffee rather than getting the stuff brought in, get some little Timbits, Buble bits, right? Okay. So I said, well, why don't we do it this way and get enough for our whole session that we're not wasting cookies, right? Because it kept costing more money. And I looked at the cost cutting measures. I did some number crunching, and they all agreed. There was some that didn't agree. And so they like, at first they were going to vote it down. And I said, well, can I have a recount? So I demanded, it was like almost like I was sending in a legislator. And so they had to do a recount. Well, it passed. It passed, but there was questions. It was the deferral questions of saying, well, why should we use a stainless steel canister versus one that's going to be aluminum? Well, because one would leak into the coffee. One was the mayor at the time. MLA at the time had said, for God's sake, I mean, do we have to debate something about just putting coffee in it and getting it out to people and doing a cost-cutting measure? And so I was very delighted and excited that I got it passed because I wanted to look at ways of saving money. And of course, as a person on PWD, low income, we always look at ways of getting the most value for your dollar.
Yeah.
And I guess the government always looked at ways of, well, it is what it is.
Well, you know what the government does now? The government here in BC, they've hired like 4 different consultants. One of which recently is going to get paid $1 million for mental health, to study mental health and
$1 million.
And drug addiction, right? But I wanted to say that we're at the end of the show, Brent. So maybe we can wrap up.
Sure.
With comments.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll pass it over to you, Breanna, for your ending comments for today's show, and I'd like to first of all just extend the invitation to have you back on at a future show.
Thank you. Yeah, just thank you for having me on. I think this topic is something I care about a lot because I see so many people who are suffering, and a lot of people you don't see are suffering as well. So I think it really is time for the government to pay attention to the needs of people who are having the hardest times in life, and realize that it's not as easy for everyone else as it might be for them, and that everybody does have equal right to safety and happiness on planet Earth. So it is the responsibility of the ones who are in positions of power and influence to fight hard for more vulnerable people who don't have necessarily as strong or loud of voices. And I hope that there can be almost immediate solution where the government better supports people in the most need, because those people are losing their lives daily, and their lives matter. So
Thank you on that, Breanna. Very well said. I think you echo a lot of other people's comments out there in the disability community and as allies across our beautiful country, because a lot of people, their lives are at risk, and they don't need to be at risk. People's their children, their grandchildren, I mean, they're allies to the individual, and they see what's going on, and some of them they're strapped to the hilt, and they can't do anything else to help them more. There's so many lived experience stories of, and they're all compelling stories of how government's policies change people's lives, and not in so many good ways either. And it doesn't have to be as a negative; it can be as a positive. I always learned from a college instructor, and where said, Brent, you can turn a negative into a positive, and very easily, and that's what I want to teach the government. You can turn a negative situation into a positive situation, the outcome of changing people's lives. You can do it. It's that political will and the political policy that are embedded in there of, magic words of mean-spirited policies or whatever they want to call them, I mean, those are alphabet soup. I call them alphabet soup, right? Because they're just
no soup for you, Brent. No soup for
no
you.
soup for you. Or as I would say, like a place I went to one time, no coffee for you. Yeah, and yeah, that was a joke in itself, but that's another thing. But yeah, I went to a place and I asked for coffee, and they were brewing coffee, and I said, "Well, I just want a refill." There's no coffee for you. I'm like, "Wow, okay."
Wow.
Yeah, like, and of course they said, "Have you ever watched the Soup Nazi?" I said, "Oh, I love it." So it's our favorite line. But yeah, again, getting back to about policies, policies need to be changed, modernized. We need to reboot, rebuild the system, right? It's purposely designed to hurt vulnerable people. Enough is enough, government. And I'm not saying like everything that I'm saying that why it has to change. I'm also echoing my view, my own personal opinion, but I'm also echoing other guests. Like I have Breanna on right now. I have other people in our comments section, government. People across our beautiful province and our beautiful country. We're all saying the same thing. We're all in our own area of advocating. We're all saying the systems are broken. We need them modernized. Okay.
And the thing is the thing is that the government knows they're broken. The government knows they need to be fixed. But for some reason they're not doing it. They're not doing it.
It's the gatekeepers that are stopping.
Yeah.
Gatekeepers, give me the key, I'll open up the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because like enough is enough. Because it'll affect your life too. In the gatekeepers, it'll affect your life. You might be protected.
Well, the thing is it'll affect their life, but they still have their pension.
Yeah, their quality of life will be diminished, right? So how is it good to have, you could have $1 billion. I mean, there are stories about billionaires out there who are well protected, but their quality of life, they can't enjoy life because, they're disabilities, right? I mean, they have disabilities. There are so many different types of disabilities. And before we end the show, there was one meeting that I had, and I'm not going to get into it, but there was a meeting I had at one time where I was told there was a few of us in a meeting, wow, you don't look like you all have disabilities.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine being told by looking at us, like there was 3 of us, you don't have disabilities. You don't look like we have disabilities. Or people.
That actually happens a lot, Brent. I hear that comment a lot.
I had that from an employer. I had that from an employer once. Well, you don't have a disability.
You don't look disabled.
They're like, why didn't you tell me you have a disability? I go, why? What difference would that make? I mean, you're taking me for face value for who I am. Well, if you have a disability, I'm sorry, but we can't accommodate your needs. So you can't accommodate me or my disability. Which one is it? I said. They're like, so we have other people we need to interview. I go, okay. So again, that's judgmental. I just say, take the person for who they are. Don't judge them, and just take care of them and take care of society. Just take care of each other, everyone, like government. I mean, make it a happy place. Make it a better place for, make it a happy place for you and me, for everybody, because we can do it. I always say the can-do attitude, it can do it. So anyway, I want to thank everyone. First of all, I want to thank Breanna for coming on today as my guest and talking about what's going on in your life, Breanna, what's going on, how things have affected your life. What do you want to see change happen? There's so many things. And after I've done mine, I'm just going to quickly move it over to you, Breanna, and then we'll end the show. But first of all, I want to thank everyone for tuning in.
Thanks for the live chat today. It was really hopping today. Yeah.
A great live chat. And I just want people to reach out to our podcast version wherever you find it best suited for you to tune into. We're going to be making a few adjustments on the show coming up. Just to kind of a few modifications.
Top secret
stuff. But we're going to just to really make it really more enjoyable in different ways. So stay tuned to that. I'm getting a little sneak peek of things, but it's all good. I mean, we just tweak things up here and there. But again, I hope everyone's enjoying our podcasts. We put out great content, have great guests on, talk about lived experience stories. What do you want to see happen going forward with government, holding them accountable? What do you want to see in your community? How does things affect your life? And is it transportation, housing, municipal stuff, you name it, come on, reach out to Neil and we'll get you scheduled in. But before I sign off, Breanna, last words from you.
Yeah, just a big thank you to both of you for having me on, and just all the best to everybody too who's experiencing hardships in their lives, and try and stay hopeful no matter what. I like to believe there's always a way to get through things, even if you have to fight for it. So
Yeah.
um,
I appreciate your candid comments today, Breanna, and I also appreciate
Fabulous.
Inga Klaus's powerful comment in chat today as well. So again, condolences to your losing your husband. But yeah, it was a really good show today.
It's a great show, and I greatly appreciate you taking the time for coming on, Breanna, and love to have you back on, and we'll kind of take a look at another dive at the housing and kind of check to see where things are at in the very near future, and see what has changed in the housing stuff. And just to let everyone know that we will be having a rally at the BC legislature this coming fall. When the session, right now they've risen for spring break, the legislature. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're still not in there doing business. They do have meetings coming and going in between time. It just means that the legislature itself, where they make policy decisions and stuff, they're taking a break, and they're still in their constituencies. They're still working in their constituencies. I've seen a lot of movement to go around, and that's great, but they need to be listening to people in the communities of how to better the system. It's okay to respond to emails. I mean, pick up the phone, return calls. I mean, I know that the opposition, they're being very active, also holding the current government to account, and rightfully so, right? Green Party, BC Green Party, same thing. And they're going to be going around the province too, the BC Green Party, apparently. So touring around. But in the fall, they're going to be having, we're going to have a rally, Breanna. So I look forward to having you at that rally if you'd like to attend. Jeff Leggett will, from Disability Action of Canada, will be putting out some more information nearing the time when they get back in the session. I just don't know. I think it will probably be in October, early October sometime. So stay tuned on that, everyone. We'll be having Jeff coming on and advertising the rally. I'm not sure the agenda yet. Maybe might have a DJ back. I think that really livens things up. The weather could be not so.
Hopefully he actually brings a cake that doesn't that survives the mellow hat.
Yeah, there was a very big cake, everyone, that Jeff had brought, and it said, eat, let them eat cake, let them eat. It didn't survive, but Jeff gave it to the homeless.
He was able to donate it,
which is awesome. But hopefully, maybe next time it'll survive that voyage through the Malahat. And hopefully, maybe they'll have public transit running from Cowichan to Victoria too by then. People from Cowichan can actually make it out to the rally.
Anybody that wants to come on and talk about that, you're welcome to talk about that too.
I actually had somebody reach out to me on social media regarding regarding the bus pass. Not bus pass, but bus pass and the bus service. So it's really affecting a lot of people. And I advocate a lot on that. But thank you, everyone. Reach out to us anytime if you want to come on the show. Thank you, and again, thank you, Breanna, for coming on today and being our guest. And look forward to having you on again soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.